right. Hello once again and welcome to the GameFront podcast. It's episode 21 and I'm your host, managing editor at GameFront, Ron Whitaker. Joining me today, senior editor Phil Hornshaw.
Hey, hey.
And our intrepid video team, Mitchell Saltzman.
Hey, howdy, hey.
And James Heaney.
Good day to you. Sorry.
We need to rehearse those a little better, I think.
You know what the problem was?
I feel pretty good about mine.
I rehearsed that for a long time. It just didn't feel natural.
Well, no, that's the problem, is that you
Maybe
you said it so professional and you made us look really bad, so.
I'm sorry.
I just made mine up on the fly, and now I'm feeling a little inadequate.
Yeah. Well, it's been a busy week in gaming. Lots of stuff has happened, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. But we're going to start out by talking about Diablo III, Reaper of Souls, because that came out on Tuesday. And since things are a little crazy with Diablo when it launched the first time, we were just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen.
And it's been, I think the launch has been pretty smooth.
It has been. It's been, there's been no Error 37 moment. There's been, the only downtime I had was because my ISP chose the moment when I was working on my review to take the system down for like 3 hours.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when Diablo 3 came out, it was like the last Diablo thing that people have played was Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction.
Yeah.
Whereas this time, the last Diablo that people played was Diablo 3. And I think people were pretty turned off from Diablo after Diablo 3. So,
yeah.
I think we give them credit for a successful launch, but also, I don't think as many people were interested in this expansion as they were in the vanilla Diablo 3 when it came out.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard two schools of thought on what's the reason, that things worked so well this time. And one of them is, Blizzard had a really good idea of how many people already had Diablo 3, so they could plan better for the expansion. And then option two is, a lot of people don't give a shit about Diablo 3 anymore. And I'm not sure which one of those is more accurate.
I think it's a little column A, a little column B.
But anyway, Mitch, I know you've been playing. I've been playing. What do you think about it so far?
It's Diablo 3. I don't know. I haven't gone through Act 5 yet, so I haven't gone to the adventure mode, so I know that's a big part. Like, I think they even said, like, the adventure mode is worth the cost of admission alone. I don't know about that, but
I don't know. I mean, I finished Act 5. Killed Malthael.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not really a spoiler. It shows up at the very beginning of the expansion.
The Reaper of Souls is the boss of the game.
Yeah, who knew?
Oh, shit, that's what it is?
Yeah, I know, right?
Sorry, Phil.
But when you finish that, you get to go into the adventure mode. Basically what adventure mode is you end up back in town, and you can go to any of the sections of the game that you've already played and play them again.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? But with different quests, different objectives. It might be kill this enemy or clear out the temple or whatever it is, And you earn rewards for that. And there's a couple of new currencies that they put in, these rift shards or rift keystones. That's what they're called. And then the blood shards. And rift keystones, if you get enough of them, you can open up a Nephilim rift. You go in, and it's a randomly generated dungeon with randomly generated enemies and bosses and rewards. And so you do that, and then the blood shards can be used to buy weapons or armor from a weapon vendor in town, except you can't see what you're buying. So it's like you can trade 10 blood shards for a sword, a one-handed sword, and then you have to identify it, and it might be really, really good. It might be really, really not good. So, it's got a randomness factor in there that I guess is supposed to keep you grinding away for more and more shards to try to get, new gear, new weapons.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the story with the auction house?
It's gone.
It's completely gone. And that was before this expansion, or did this expansion seal the deal?
No, before the expansion.
much like with World of Warcraft, Blizz tends to put in a big game patch before the expansion comes out to sort of preload a lot of the systems that they're going to use in the expansion. And with Diablo 3 this time, they did a big patch. I think it was 2.0.1. And that removed the auction house, added the new Loot 2.0 system, made a bunch of changes to the way difficulty works. I mean,
basically fixed a lot of the game.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine we'll see the numbers of unemployment go up, because I know so many people that when that came out were like, oh, I'm just going to sell things in the Diablo auction house and quit my job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually not the greatest business plan.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know anybody that's really made money. Everybody that's told me they made money, I feel is kind of like one of those gamblers that don't want to let you know how much they lost. But yeah, I would never, ever, ever buy any sword for real money. It blew my mind.
Well, I mean, that's sort of been the case with almost any of the virtual things that have gone on. I mean, think about, like, Valve's, the stuff that Valve does on the, with like Team Fortress 2 hats and stuff. There's always the articles. You always see interviews where they're like, oh yeah, there was a guy that made, $50,000 making hats for Team Fortress 2. And like, yeah, for every one guy that made $50,000, there were 100 guys that made 50 cents,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they took the auction house out.
Me too.
Well, and if you play it with Loot 2.0, and Mitch, I think you'll agree with me on this, the drop rates are the drops are so much better in that not only do you drop better items, but you tend to drop items that are more related to your class.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that. If you play the original Diablo 3, I played a witch doctor. And it was like, all you were ever doing was going to the auction house and posting heaps of monk and wizard equipment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was my problem. I just didn't care about the drops. So if you take that away from Diablo, then it doesn't matter. Because I'm just thinking, oh, I got this, but whatever I have is nothing in comparison to what you could just buy in the auction house.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just cynical.
No, I think you're probably right. Mostly because it's just really hard to, I can't imagine how Blizzard tried to balance that. Because that everybody's going to be able to buy whatever they want. So, you can't have a million great items dropping because, supply and demand of the auction house just becomes too much to handle. So, I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's actually, and Blizzard says this, there's actually less items dropping now than there were before, but what is dropping is much better for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a chance to get some items that are really good for you. So,
that's cool.
I
love the idea of the blood.
Now.
Say it again?
I said, I just think it's a better system now than it was then.
Yeah, the blood shard sounds really kind of exciting. Like that feeling of like, what am I going to get? Spin the wheel of fortune.
Oh yeah, I mean that's big. That's basically what it is. So, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that they have completely revamped, the difficulty system. Then everything is centered around. They start you on normal difficulty, and then you can ramp it up from there. All the monsters scale to your level now, so it's a very different game than it was before. But I don't know. I like Mitch. I think it's still just Diablo 3.
They didn't cut any of that sweet clicking out, did they?
Oh no, clicking is still a feature of the game.
Nice.
For those of you that haven't seen it, we'll have our Diablo 3 Reaper Souls review out later today, and it will feature James's honest Diablo 3 trailer, which is definitely worth going back and taking a look at. So
that was fun.
We had a lot of fun with that one. So, I mean, in short, for me, like Diablo 3 Reaper Souls is just Diablo 3, and I don't think Adventure Mode's going to hold people over. And, it's okay. It's fun. You play it through in a couple of adventure modes here and there, but I don't see people grinding it out like they did with Diablo 2. I just don't see it. So.
Well, before we move on from Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, because, I mean, another one of the big additions to it, and I wonder what your thoughts on it are, the Crusader class. Did you play any of the Crusader?
Yeah, the Crusader was fun.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a cross between, it felt a little bit like a barbarian, but a little bit more defensive, you know?
I mean, to me, it felt exactly like the Diablo 2 Paladin. Like, I think he even has very similar moves. Like, he has the shield charge.
Yeah.
He has the hammers that fly around him. But yeah, I was a little disappointed, especially because I read on Twitter, like, people were saying that the Crusader class was easily the most fun class that Diablo 3 has. I'm like, really? Because it seems a lot like a Diablo 2 class that I found not very fun.
I'll just say this much. I mean, you can say what you want about the most fun Diablo 3 class, but the Witch Doctor can summon zombie dogs and a gargantuan zombie to walk around and smack shit with him, and nothing's really going to top that. So.
Yeah, I was playing as the Witch Doctor also. It was fun.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. I mean, the Crusader's cool. He sets undead things on fire. I mean, come on. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He was all right, but I was expecting something better, and he felt very similar to the Paladin, which disappointed me.
Like, I think there's a lot of good changes that are in Diablo 3 now, but most of them were not part of the expansion. Is that fair, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other thing that happened this week, the other game that sort of popped up on everybody's radar, was the final DLC for BioShock Infinite, Burial at Sea Episode 2. Everybody knows that Irrational's closing down. With this DLC, it was kind of their swan song. And, so everybody was kind of anxious to see what they would do with it, how it would turn out. And I know Phil's already finished it. So, what do you think, Phil? Is it an apt finish for Irrational Games?
I kind of don't like it. I don't know. It's okay. So, breaking it down, as far as a finish for Irrational Games, I think that they finally got to do what they really should have been doing all along, which is to make Elizabeth the protagonist of that game, and actually build some character out of it and stuff. That was cool. It spends the whole time. You actually, you play as Elizabeth. She runs around being all stealthy and stuff, and is having a whole existential crisis the entire time, which is cool, and it was a good addition to what was an interesting character in BioShock Infinite, so that was nice. But my big issue with Burial at Sea is that for some reason it feels the need to retcon like huge amounts of both BioShock Infinite and BioShock. And it forces the games to be linked even more than they were linked before. They're actually like one coherent story now, in a way. And I don't know, like it just it felt largely unnecessary. It sort of diminished what made BioShock good originally, the first game. And I don't know, I didn't like a lot of the choices that were made, and I'm not really sure why they felt the need to do them. It seems like it explains a lot of things that didn't need explaining while ignoring a lot of things that still could be explained. I'm not sure what the point of all that was. I don't know. It just it's got all the same problems that BioShock Infinite did as a whole in some weird ways. Kind of remixes them again. And yeah, I just, as being the culmination of what that studio is, as the studio is now drifting away, it's kind of sad in a way.
Well, I mean, seriously though, let me ask you a question. When you got to the end of BioShock Infinite, and for anybody that hasn't played it, I'm sorry.
I haven't played it.
But I'm not. Trust me, this isn't going to hurt your enjoyment of the game at all, because you're going to have to fight through. The game's going to actively make you want to not get this far. But when you got to the section in BioShock Infinite with all the lighthouses out on the out on the water, did you not know that at some point like, my thought was the next BioShock is going to come full circle and you're going to start at one of those lighthouses and then end up at Rapture. I mean...
Oh, no, I mean, like, you drift by Rapture even in the ending of Infinite.
Yeah.
But what I thought, what I believed they were attempting to accomplish was the way in which these people keep making these same mistakes, right? Across multiple universes. We're talking about the quantum mechanics of the game, which is that there are all these parallel universes, there are all these parallel Bookers and Comstocks and in a way Elizabeths, and they're all running the same script, but it goes a little differently in each different world, right? You actually hop between those different worlds, so that there's a Rapture world isn't all that crazy, and that it's a different remixing of those elements. I mean, that seemed to be the entire point of BioShock Infinite to begin with, was we're going to take BioShock and we're going to take those same elements and tell a new story. And that was actually what made it so interesting originally at first, was the idea that it was going to shuffle BioShock around and try it a different way, with City in the Clouds instead of underwater, with a different kind of megalomania and this reliance on religion instead of on sheer capitalism. It was interesting in that way. And instead, what Burial at Sea does, instead of keeping those things as different versions of the same universe, they're actually connected by a corridor, and those two stories are directly influencing one another. So it takes it much further than I ever thought they were even attempting to go, or much further, I guess, than they ever did in BioShock Infinite. So it's different in that way. I mean, it forces them together. It really does. It's not just, in BioShock Infinite, they suggest that Fink can see into Rapture, and that's where he gets the idea for Vigors, right? They hint at that. And then there are other parallels like Songbird and the what are they called? The big workman guys. Yeah, with the Big Daddies, but also the big workman guys in Infinite. I can't remember the names now.
The
Handyman.
The Handyman.
Yeah, there are parallels, and you're supposed to get those parallels between, the different mechanical monsters made by these callous people to run their cities. But no, those elements are actually linked, because you find out in Burial at Sea, spoiler alert, but kind of not really, because it's sort of super clear all the time, that Fink and Suchong weren't just influenced, or Fink didn't just see into Rapture. They were talking to each other. They were creating the interaction between Suchong and Fink was making that story happen in Rapture and in Columbia. And it's just weird in that way.
Now, maybe I'm misconstruing this, but are you saying that in every universe that this is happening between Fink and Suchong, or isn't it just this particular version of the events where Elizabeth went into Rapture to find Comstock, and that's what created this whole thing for this universe?
Well, one would think, but remember that in BioShock Infinite, well, no, this is where it gets done. This is why it's irritating that the story is kind of full of plot holes. So, yes, you're right. It is your Elizabeth, basically, from BioShock Infinite, who went to Rapture and is involved in Burial at Sea to create the events of those two universes, right? Okay, sure, yes. However, here's what we know. In BioShock Infinite, you jump through, 3 total different versions of Columbia, right? Right. Uh-huh. Those are ostensibly different universes, but they all have the similar elements. They all have, for example, Vigors, right? Well, if Vigors came from interactions between Suchong and Fink, there must be other Raptures and other interactions and other Finks and other Suchongs, right? Mm-hmm. So it has to be happening in multiple universes.
Did they get the Vigors? Did they get the Vigors from Suchong? I thought that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten that far, but yeah. I mean, you get to Suchong's lab and you find. There are audio diaries talking about the sea slugs. There are sea slugs in Fink's lab that are out there, and he's like, man, these freaking sea slugs, You couldn't have thought of a better idea, Suchong, than sea slugs? Because they're really hard to find.
Well,
like, he says that aloud.
Well, from what I got out of that, actually, was that Fink learned about the sea slugs, and he learned that the sea slugs were actually a much more, it was a much better way to use to do the whole vigorous thing. Like, there was a blackboard, I think, that had a picture of the drinkable vigor and the injectable plasmid or whatever, and it was like way more profitable. It was like you required much less Eve or Adam or whatever.
Adam. But see, the reading I had of that was that they were two different versions of the same thing. I mean, they both use Adam, right? So they're both Adam comes from sea slugs. That's what we know in BioShock, in the original BioShock. That's where they find it in those sea slugs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the existence of Adam at all is a side effect of the creation of Rapture. They find it by accident. Right. And then it leads to all the plasmids and all that other noise. But that's the only place that we know of that they can get it from. And the genetic information that they learn along the way comes all, from Rapture and the people in Rapture. Anyway, I mean, you might be right. You might be right that there are different ways to make vigors, but I never saw any evidence of that. And all I ever saw was that Fink tried making drinkable plasmids, and it costs a lot more Adam. And then there's another one, and there's another audio diary later of Frank Fontaine yelling at Suchong, going, "Why are you making drinkable plasmids? They cost 10 times the Adam.
Yeah,
make them and go back to injectables." So, like, yeah, you might be right, but the only evidence I ever saw was that they were the same thing in two different versions.
Okay.
So anyway, I can't remember the point. I
don't know, but I just got so lost in that discussion.
Lore, man, it's just lore and conduits of lore that they twist in and out of each other, and they don't really make a
damn bit of sense.
So I find it somewhat frustrating that Columbia and Rapture are the same story, and the retcons that are involved there, I felt like were just unnecessary and somewhat frustrating. And ultimately, the story kind of gets lost in itself, I think, So.
I just, listening to that discussion reminded me of that section in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where they're going over the tenses you use for time travel.
Right.
And it's like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry we fell into that.
When I hear that, I think to myself, I don't want to use needles, and I'll pay 10 times more to drink it. Right.
I mean, that's fair.
That's fair. I like it. I'm with you, James. I'm on your team for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's BioShock. For those of you that picked up the DLC, let us know what you think. Is it worthy of being the last thing we ever see come out of Irrational Games? It sure doesn't sound like it, does it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't gotten to the end of it, and Phil is much better at catching retcons than I am. So I generally forget what happens in games. Like, I don't know. There's a time limit on how long I will remember the events of a game substantially. But so far, I'll say this: I like Burial at Sea Episode 2 much better than Episode 1.
That's absolutely true. It's way better.
Yeah, my biggest criticism of Episode 1 was that it felt like a Rapture-skinned mod of BioShock Infinite. It was just, for whatever reason, they decided to put whatever makes up BioShock Infinite in Rapture, and it didn't feel natural. This time, I think they didn't do that. This is a completely different style of game from any of the other BioShocks. It's very stealth-oriented. All the plasmids are based around, getting through situations without having it turn into a firefight. And it's pretty refreshing. The stealth mechanics aren't that great, but it's fun and it's refreshing. So that's what
Yeah.
I'll say about the gameplay of episode 2.
From a gameplay standpoint, it is actually pretty fun. I enjoyed it, even though you early on get the very first plasmid you get lets you both see through walls and become invisible, which is
moderately helpful in a stealth.
Well, yeah, I mean that is certainly super useful. But then you find a mod for that plasmid that makes it better, that allows you to see through walls, be invisible, and not use any Eve, which is the juice that powers your plasmids, basically, right? As long as you stand still, you don't use Eve, and it's when you're actually moving that you burn through it. So that's kind of blows out all the mechanics, unfortunately.
I think you either got lucky or maybe unlucky, because those mods are random, I think. And
are they?
I haven't found that yet. I've gotten like three mods for the plasmid or the vigor, I guess, that makes you absorb bullets.
Okay. So yeah, maybe they are.
Yeah.
I that was legit the first mod I found.
Oh, well, you got lucky.
I would say it's unlucky, because like you said, it kind of takes all skill out of the rest of it was tedium, because no one, if you can flip invisible, no one can find you, and it doesn't burn any Eve, so you just sit and wait for people to walk over, and then you whack them with your your skyhook thing, and then other people are alerted by that, and they come running over, and you go invisible, and you wait, and you whack them in the face with your skyhook, and you just repeat that until everybody is down, and you move through the area at your leisure. So
you loot all the bodies and move on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's which is nice in a way, because it did make it easier to explore things, and you do get to see some cool places like Fink's lab, where he builds, where he has the handyman built and stuff like that. You get to see interesting areas of both Rapture and Columbia that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and that was much better than Burial at Sea Episode 1.
Yes.
Like, Burial at Sea Episode 1, you're in Rapture, but pretty much the only interesting stuff that you explore is, at the very beginning of the DLC, you're in, the shopping area. You get to see, people before Rapture went to shit, and that's basically it. After that, you're just going from corridor to corridor. Nothing really interesting. And, yeah.
Actually, one of the more interesting things that happens in Burial at Sea 2, one of the first places you go to, first you start in this really, really awful preparatory academy, Ryan the Lion Preparatory Academy, where it's just they're just teaching kids how to step on each other's necks as they climb the ladder of success.
And then they have a list of it's like a T chart of communism and what's the other thing that they have there?
There's a whole mess. I took a screenshot of it.
It's
throw
pretty
it in the podcast post when we throw it up. It's awful. That place is terrible. And then right after that, immediately after that, you end up in a porn shop. And it's very 1958 risque. So it's oh man, they've got one shoulder showing a little bit, but
and this is also where you get the vigor, where you can look through walls and turn invisible, so you can see the application of this vigor.
Yeah, the peep show area. But what was interesting to me was that it's probably the most sexualized BioShock or BioShock Infinite has ever been. In that moment, there's very few allusions. Whenever any allusions to sex in BioShock or Rapture or Columbia happen in any other point in both games, they're very much subtext. There's some allusions to relationships with Sander Cohen. There's some allusions to relationships with Andrew Ryan. But from different characters, they're all in audio journals, and they're all very much, kind of under the surface. This is the first time we've actually wandered into a place that suggests that, hey, actual people live in Rapture and sometimes they bang. And I just found that totally interesting, especially because of Elizabeth being locked in that tower. And she actually has a moment where she's like, we didn't have any books like this in my tower. And it's just this totally weird character moment. I felt I don't know. It's that hung with me for some reason. That I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I mean, let's we'll close the door on BioShock for now. I mean, and since you're saying that, since Phil says that getting the vigor that he got, or made things a little bit too easy, let's talk about something that's a little bit harder.
Nice segue. Well done, Ron.
And right before we started the podcast today, I'll quote Mitch to say, "I swear this is the day that I'm going to finish Dark Souls 2.
Today's the day."
So, Mitch, I know you and James have both been playing Dark Souls 2, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't. Just because I just don't have the time to smash my face into that right now. I really don't. But what's the report from the front? How many times has James died? Yeah.
I'll tell you, we're doing an expert walkthrough, so we're obviously keeping it under 500 deaths. I have found the game
level. Is that it?
Yeah, it's an expert level walkthrough. When I have started mine, when Mitch finishes his, I'm gonna start putting mine up. But for the honest truth is I feel the game is really easy, and I think people just have to look at it in the big picture. And the walkthrough I'm working on is really gonna help people see the big picture.
I think what James means is the game is really easy to fall off ledges in.
Shut up.
It's also very easy to die in.
Well, is it harder than the first one?
It's interesting. Dark Souls 2, every time it throws you a bone, it smacks you on the face with it like 5 times. So it's easier in some ways and harder in a lot more ways. For example, you can now repair your everything that degrades can be repaired just by resting at a bonfire. You don't need to pay souls for it, unless it breaks. If it breaks, then you have to repair it. But if it just degrades and doesn't break, then you just rest at a bonfire and it all gets repaired. But equipment degrades much faster this time, and there are enemies that.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
Is the word degrades the same as degrades?
Degrades.
I just wanted to know that part there. Go on.
James, you know what? I'm gonna let you have that because I am always on your case when you fuck up words.
If degregate's not a word, it ought to be a word. I mean,
it sounds like a good word. Like maybe we should start using that.
Degrades. I'm sorry, Mitch. Degraded to the point of breaking.
Basically, your weapons degrade a lot faster, and there are enemies that will completely fuck up your equipment, and they're very common towards the later part of the game. Also, you get these items called life gems, and they're you can buy them very easily. And they restore your health. In Dark Souls 1, your only real way to restore your health was an Estus Flask, or if you happen to be a healer, you could use a heal spell. The problem is that you only get one Estus Flask to start the game, and the only way to get more is by finding these Estus Flask shards, and then you get one more per shard that you find.
Let's be real honest. You don't start with an Estus Flask. You actually have to get to the Estus Flask.
You have to get through the easy tutorial.
I'll help people figure out how to do that. It takes a while.
So yeah, I mean, the basic gist of it is that it's easier in some ways and a lot harder in others. Overall, I would say it's harder than Dark Souls 2, than Dark Souls 1.
Well, that's a little bit terrifying.
I'll agree, but I'm going to phrase it like this. I do think Dark Souls 1 is a little bit easier than Dark Souls 2. There is certainly some challenges that I've found in the first several videos that I've recorded of Dark Souls 2, and they're tough. But I don't... There's just some things I don't understand about the world yet, like torches. Where to get them, how to use them. The difficult.
Torches? I mean, you light them on fire, they put out light. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I've just run into a situation once. I'm sure it'll clear up pretty quick. But I got a torch and it was my first time through, and I didn't find anywhere to put it. So then I was like, oh, I'll go back to the bonfire and get another torch. Well, my bonfire doesn't have torches, or I don't understand how to get it.
You don't understand how to do torches.
Well, I mean, this is the beginning of the expert walkthrough. We get through those things quick. I'm sure it'll be in the next video.
Right. No one could possibly know how to do torches, so... I mean, oh, James. You just to help you out, you press triangle when you're at a bonfire, and it lets you switch to the next option, and it lets you say, light the torch.
Oh, that was what I was going to do next, actually. Thank you, though. That'll save me like a second, but no biggie. I should write that really quick.
Yeah, I love Dark Souls 2. It is one of the. I mean, I understand people who say that it's poorly designed, but I think it's one of the best designed games I've ever played. Just the way that certain combat scenarios are designed so that you encounter them, it seems impossible, and then you look around and you see, oh wait, there's a flood of enemies that are coming my way, but if I just move backwards, I can funnel them all into this narrow corridor that is very conveniently placed there, and just kill them all with a single power attack. And it's stuff like that where, like I said, you approach a situation, you get your ass kicked, and then you figure out a way that the area is designed to put something that you have to your advantage. And stuff like that is really cool to me.
Yeah, I've heard that from more than one person, so you're not the first person I've said that. So
it bothers me when I see people say that Dark Souls 2 is poorly designed. I'm like, it's not. You're wrong.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think that it's, and I haven't played that much of it, but I really like it a lot. And every difference that I've seen from Dark Souls 1 is exciting and new. Instead of something where you're like, oh, I wish they hadn't changed that. It's a great game. I love the mechanics of Dark Souls in general, and I think that every moment I've played of Dark Souls 2 is amazing.
Yeah, I think everybody knows how you guys feel about Dark Souls.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think it's an issue, and luckily we're gonna have Dark Souls on PC before too long.
It's gonna be great. And I would actually gladly throw down the purchase price for the PC version again, because you can definitely tell that they scaled back the console version, because if you look at the game at E3, if you look at some comparison videos of the Mirror Knight fight specifically, it looks a lot better in the E3 demo. They had to scale back a lot of the environmental effects, the detail on the characters, and the lighting effects. All that stuff has been scaled down substantially on the console version. So I'm really looking forward to playing the PC version and seeing what Dark Souls 2 should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be neat, and I think that might be the one I pick up now that listening to you guys talk about it always makes me want to play it. So, and then I go play it for a while, and I'm like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
I mean,
as highly as watching you guys play it.
As highly as I recommend Dark Souls 2, I fully understand that it's not a game that is for everyone. It expects a lot out of its players, and if you're not the type to really want to stick with it and be patient enough to play the game the way it's really meant to be played, I can see how people wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't think Dark Souls is a good game. I mean, I think Phil, it was you, right, that when Dark Souls came out originally in 2011, Phil wrote an article. I think the title was, I think Dark Souls is great, I just don't want to play it.
Yeah. That was me. Academically, I totally get it, and I think the game is awesome. And it's super cool that it's all about you learning how to play it, and it's just not compromising. And you just have to be better. It just makes you be better. That's super cool. But I don't really have that kind of time. So I would much rather not do that. But like I said, I appreciate watching other people play. I really dug our the James vs. Games you guys did 2 weeks ago now. where with Dark Souls 2. It was a fun time. But I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be James in that video. I'd much rather watch James in that video.
Yeah, I hear you. So. I'm with you. So those are kind of the three big games that we had on our agenda for today. But there's something else that we have to talk about. And that is the internet was mostly horrified to learn that that Oculus had sold out to Facebook for $2 billion.
I'm horrified that that's even legal. Like, I didn't think that was allowed.
Well, it's not. See, because mostly they paid them in Facebook stock.
Yeah,
so.
It's only like $400 million in cash.
Yes.
Yeah,
$400 million in cash.
Still a lot of money.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
No, yeah.
But the 1.6 billion part of that is in Facebook stock.
Which hilariously immediately began sinking upon news.
Yeah, so it's
actually more like 1.599.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, and there's been a lot of talk. I mean, everyone from games journalists to Cliff Bleszinski has come out and said, you guys just don't know the way business works, blah blah blah. But and Phil has a really good piece we just put on the site today about why it's good to be worried about this deal.
Yeah, I read that. It was really good.
Oh, thanks.
But I think it's important to talk about it some more because I really do. I mean,
I've been talking about it for 2 days.
I've been talking about it with you, but there are too many people right now that are, it seems like every time something like this happens and some group of people gets angry about it, there's a group of ready responders that are there to talk them down.
Games journalism. There's a ton of them in games journalism.
It's not just games journalism. There are some in games journalism. There are some developers, that just dismiss outright.
Everybody turns into Andrew Ryan whenever anything something like this happens. They're like, well, that's capitalism.
Yeah.
Should have thought about where you're putting your money. And it's like the great chain is pulling us all,
Yeah, I mean, and Phil laid it out really well in his article, but I'm going to touch on this again in that, one of the big groups of people that got angry with this was the people who originally shelled out the cash to back Oculus on Kickstarter, those 9,400, however many people it was, $2.5 million. Like Notch said, I didn't throw $10,000 in to, fund around as initial funding so they could go out and sell themselves to Facebook.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I certainly can understand that the guys at Oculus are looking to make some money and that, that $2 billion is a hard deal to turn down.
No, yeah, absolutely. And we have to remember that they had about $100 million in venture capital funding that came through a few months ago.
Right.
Right. So it's not like they were the only people involved in this decision. And yeah, nobody in VC is going to look at putting in $100 million and then somebody offers you $2 billion. They're going to go, nope, we would really rather just not. That's not going to happen. So
it's not a thing that happens in the real.
The reality is that, of course, they were going to sell to a company that was bigger than them. Eventually, the value of their business was going to come through. I thought maybe it would happen after they actually produced a product, which they haven't actually done yet. We should keep that in mind. But it makes sense, I mean, if everybody who plays Oculus raves about it, or just about everybody, and there's definitely something there, What irritates me, and this is the thing that I got about in this piece, and especially as we were talking about those folks who are the Ready Response Brigade, who want to come out and lecture everybody about how capitalism works every time a deal like this goes through. What irritates me about it is that in order to get funded on Kickstarter, you have to subscribe to this narrative that you are a creative person who has a great idea, but you just can't get it done for one reason or another. The fat cats with all the money. What's that?
I said through traditional channels.
Exactly. The fat cats with all the money are holding you down and not letting you achieve your dream, and you just have to, if you could just cut them out of the way and go directly to the consumers with your idea and have them help you make it happen, then everybody wins. You get to make your great idea, your great product, and the consumers get to have it or buy it, maybe pre-order it through Kickstarter, and you team up through kind of like a socialist idea and circumvent those rich douchebags and get to make the things that you want to make. That's what Kickstarter is. That's the altruistic myth of Kickstarter.
Which is all a lie.
It's all a lie. It's altogether a lie because clearly they didn't need that $2.5 million, right? If or more aptly, Oculus took that $2.5 million and those 9,000 people who thought it was a great idea, and after, asking them for help to make that dream a reality, they turned around and went back to traditional channels and said, look, all these people want to buy this thing, want to give us a bunch of money. And to get that money, to get that support, they had to pretend as if those traditional channels were not the way they wanted to do it. I mean, Palmer Luckey, the founder of the company, or the co-founder of the company, said at some point in 2012 on we actually covered the story on GameFront, he mentioned that he didn't want to sell out to another company because he wanted to make Oculus on his terms. Well, that's what Kickstarter is. It's a engine through which people can make the things they want to make on their terms, and they don't have to compromise for the money guys because they get their money from the people who want to make it. So there's a symbiosis there. There's a trust. People who give money on Kickstarter are donating that money. They know that. They're not investing money because there's no legal obligation for anybody to get anything when they put money on Kickstarter. But what they are investing in is this narrative. They're investing in the people. They're giving away their trust that you're going to do this thing that they want you to do and that you need their help. And that's, like you said, it really is kind of a lie. It's not really true, clearly, because eventually these guys go, okay, great, well, and now somebody who's actually got money is interested in us, and we're going to go back into the traditional hierarchy. And again, Oculus hasn't even made anything yet. They gave whatever anybody pre-ordered through their Kickstarter were those goofy prototype SDKs, which are really kind of look like they're cobbled together with duct tape now that they've got the new cool prototypes out. They made the new prototypes, the Pearls, I think they're called. Those are cool looking, and the old prototypes look like cardboard.
Yeah.
and so like anybody who backed on Kickstarter who made that happen, they wound up with like a crappy SDK, and now Oculus has $2 billion, and their whole corporate culture, even if they get to remain independent, like they say, within Facebook, their whole corporate culture has just shifted, no matter what.
I mean,
now they work for King Social stuff.
I mean, that's been my big thing all along. I mean, is that no matter how much Facebook likes to say, well, they're going to remain totally independent, focused on gaming and doing everything they've always been doing, and Oculus says, no, this is only good. There's no way this can be bad. Okay, there are plenty of ways this can be bad. I mean, and my big thing is, they've gone from being the, scrappy underdog indie who backed a $2 million Kickstarter and now they're making something awesome to a really small part of a huge corporation. And that means that, trust me, as a small part of a huge corporation, I can tell you, it means you have income projections and quarterly reports and TPS reports with cover sheets and working on Saturdays and interviews with the Bobs, okay? Most importantly, you got shareholder expectations. And all the decisions that are made about Oculus from today forward are no longer about what's best for Oculus. They may tangentially be about what's best for Oculus, but all those decisions are going to be about what's good for the bottom line and for the shareholders, because that's how it works in corporate America.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not upset that the deal is made. I'm not really all that upset about Facebook itself. It's like, well, if anybody was going to get Oculus, Jim Sterling did a really great Jimquisition yesterday, because he's like, I guess people asked him to do one, and he's like, I'm not really all that upset about this. And he made a really good point. It's like, if Oculus had been bought by Microsoft or EA or Activision, it would be the same situation, probably worse. I mean, Facebook is as likely to put ads in their VR as EA is. EA threw all kinds of real life ad billboards in like in their racing games. And
I actually liked that, though. I don't want to see, like, Farmville scrolling at the bottom like your friend wants you to log in and give him some coins or whatever, which I doubt they're going to do. But the kinds of advertisement that EA, and you're talking probably about Burnout Paradise, they were putting cool billboards, and those billboards were changing, and they were making the world feel more real. But I don't think that works for everything.
I guess you can argue that, but the point, my overall point is just that Facebook's not the only people who put ads in front of your eyes when you're doing something else. That's all I mean. And you're right. I mean, like, it's not that big of a deal, but it's also, if you want to make a big deal out of Facebook, you got to make a big deal out of EA, Microsoft, Activision, Sony, whatever, you know. And Jim made a really good point that way too. It's like gaming companies are notorious for buying up other companies and ruining them. So,
I mean,
Facebook has a pretty good track record there.
EA has destroyed is long and distinguished.
Yes. So, I mean, it could be worse. I'm really not that broken up about Oculus itself, but it does bother me from an ethical standpoint. The idea of parlaying popularity in Kickstarter and money on Kickstarter into this just no-lose way of getting your product bought or your company bought, when the only people who really made that, the people who made that happen, the people who risked the most and lost were the consumers, again. And it just irritates me when we've got a bunch of journalists jumping up to pat companies on the back when the readership that they serve, which are the consumers who gave the money to Oculus, are the ones who are in a very big way left holding the bag. And that frustrates me. That's what's upsetting about this whole deal. I don't really care about Facebook, but that angle of it.
I think you're right. I think that the problem is not Facebook. Anybody could have come in there with $2 billion and bought that company.
Yeah.
You know, anybody.
Well, anybody with $2 billion could have come in there.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it.
If I really wanted to, I could have bought Oculus with my $2 billion.
Exactly. But instead you made the smart move, and you know, we could have given them like $400 and then $1.96 billion worth of stock in James versus Games. I mean,
just
definitely, we just print it right out. It's good enough for the government. It's good enough for us. But no, it's not the sale that's the problem. The problem is the attitude and the fact that people like Palmer Luckey are willing to. They're willfully deceiving people if they're saying nothing's going to change at Oculus.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not real happy.
The reason I'm so upset about it is because I was so happy to see this independent thing happening, and I was like, wow, this is what is so great about Kickstarter. And now my argument about why Kickstarter is so awesome has just lost a huge piece. And I mean, it's like the dream, and it was so awesome to watch that happen. And now I feel like so much has just, I don't know, lost.
Welcome to my world, James. A few months
That's exactly why everybody's upset. That's you just nailed it. That's precisely it.
Yeah, because the dream is dying. I mean, I honestly think I talked to a couple people. I talked to a guy this morning who has had games successfully backed on Kickstarter, and he told me that he thinks that this Oculus deal is a bigger hit for Kickstarter than the Double Fine thing or for any of the big games that have failed. He thinks this is going to do more bad PR for Kickstarter than all those other things that have happened. Just because people are going to be so angry about the way that the Kickstarter was used that they're not going to want to back Kickstarters anymore. I mean, I was already there. I am long on record as no longer giving any money to anyone on Kickstarter. And
well, you know, I'll be done with it after I make a little bit, because I've got a couple Kickstarter plans in the works.
I am glad to welcome those of you that are no longer donating to Kickstarter. I'm glad to pull you into the team. It's really good to have you. I mean, and again, Oculus may turn out to be awesome.
This Facebook deal may be amazing. It may actually be as great as everybody keeps saying. But
but it's good to be skeptical.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
One thing that I think is important to note about Phil's article, and really the crux of the whole thing, is that one really good thing that's happening out of this Facebook deal is that VR just got legitimized. in a really big way. So, you saw the guys from Razer on Twitter sort of hinting at a VR solution. We know Sony's working on VR. There's VR at least being researched at Valve and may pick up steam now with this deal having happened.
Steam.
So,
Sorry.
Valve, Steam, whatever. They're sort of one and the same. But VR is the thing that's going to happen. Now, personally, I think it's always going to be kind of a niche. It's never going to be a mainstream thing. It's just going to be a really cool kind of add-on to stuff that people are already doing. Because, honestly, guys, come on. No grown adult that doesn't live alone is going to sit around with a big box on their face and play video games all the time. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I mean, I hate to, again, James, I'm sorry to step on the dream, but there you go.
Actually, I did. That just broke my heart because I just realized you're right.
Yeah,
Excited.
I feel like I'm exclusively going to use one if I get a VR headset, which I was inches from buying an Oculus before this happened. It's going to be for horror games. Absolutely 100% all the time. PC horror games in my room by myself in the dark. Because that'll be the most immersive way I can play them right now.
We know what's awesome about it?
Yeah.
You don't have to wait till it's dark because you're going to have a big black box on your face.
Oh, exactly. No, that's exactly what I mean. I can bring nighttime with me wherever I go. And I can just sit there and and freak out and look around and, it'll be dangerous.
I imagine Phil in like a subway with a laptop and having the Oculus on his head, just screaming in the middle of a crowded subway train.
If you wore those on a subway train, you'd be robbed so fast.
If you had the Oculus on the subway, you would take it off and you'd be like naked.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Where did my clothes go?
What happened? The only thing that's left is the Oculus and your laptop because you had it in your hand.
Right.
I mean, I think VR's cool. I think there's definitely a place for it in the future. People are going to do cool things with it because whenever there's new technology, people do cool things with it. But
there's already a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, there's already a ton of cool stuff with it. I mean, the EVE Online, like the one thing I said that I would use VR for is flight sims, and EVE Valkyrie looks amazing. And I'm just in my head. Like, my brain is picturing, like, you put the Oculus on and you do the trench run in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Who wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah. You get to be Biggs Darklighter freaking out that there are ships behind him.
I was going to say that would be with my luck, me and Phil would be playing that game, and Phil would be Luke Skywalker, and I'd be Biggs. But, anyway... So, you don't have to freak out over the Oculus deal.
No.
But it's good to be skeptical. It's good to say, well, let's wait and see what happens. It's never a good idea to proclaim victory when you haven't even started the fight yet. So before we go, a couple of things that have happened, today that I think are kind of interesting. I would point out that if you're listening to this now, you should go directly to Origin. And if you hate Origin, well, I'm sorry. But Origin has Dead Space for free. The first Dead Space PC version on Origin for free right now. Go download it. It doesn't cost you anything. And trust me, it works because I...
Nice. I had already bought that, so I won't be...
Well, I actually have it on a disc, but to have a digital version that I don't have to go dig the disc out, yeah, definitely.
No, I've purchased a number of copies of Dead Space at this point. So.
Yeah. I deserve one free one on your Origin account. The other thing that happened this morning was that we're in unsurprising news still. The Last of Us is going to be on PlayStation 4, apparently.
I didn't hear this.
You didn't?
Well, it's a report right now. It's not. Right?
Actually, it looks like it's been confirmed.
What?
Seriously.
Oh my god, I love that game so much.
Good.
So, that's pretty exciting. So,
yeah.
I saw some people this morning that, the more there's a thorough translation of Sony's PlayStation Eurasian Software Market Manager. And in an interview in Turkey, of no less, they had to get this translated by a native Turkish speaker. He said, quote, "There is no information about a new Last of Us game, but I can share this knowledge. As of this summer, The Last of Us will be on PlayStation 4, both on PlayStation Network and physically. And the PS4 version will include the DLC."
Is it really that exciting?
Yeah.
The game just came out. You already have it.
I don't have the DLC, Mitch. I don't have the DLC.
You can buy the DLC right now.
Nope. I'm waiting for the PS4 version.
I don't understand why are you excited? Why are people excited about this? The game just came out. It's not going to be any better visually. I don't know.
The PS4, Mitch. You must have mixed that part.
Visually.
Next gen.
Oh, is it going to be better visually?
I'm wondering. I mean, Tomb Raider was better, yeah.
I guess so. Yeah. All right.
I mean,
I still don't care.
It's already a pretty beautiful game, really.
I know, right?
So, no, I agree. I'm fine with that. I'm kind of glad that there's a next gen version because it felt like it should have been to begin with. But yeah, it's not like I'm going to go buy another copy of The Last of Us or anything.
Apparently, James is.
James actually just put his pre-order in.
I did. I couldn't believe it was that easy.
Oh.
Now, if they announce like a next gen reimagining of Shadow of the Colossus, that would be incredible. I'd be all right, okay. I'm on board.
Well, I feel like
that would be news.
I feel like that'll probably happen at some point. So
I don't know, maybe.
No, look at The Last Guardian. That has to come out first.
Well, I was going to say, that might be what it ends up being. It might be like, we've been working on The Last Guardian is the new Duke Nukem Forever. We're porting it to our third engine and our fourth console. It's 2017, but it's coming out. But anyway, I think if you haven't gotten to play The Last of Us, I think Phil would tell you it's probably worth playing, even though it's not earth-shaking or anything like that. Is that fair?
Not quite the game everybody made it out to be, I think. But yes, I did enjoy it. What? Go ahead.
I just want to kill you. I really liked the game. I mean, it was...
See, James, now you know how I feel whenever they talk shit about BioShock Infinite.
or Nintendo or
I was going to say, what about an next-gen Super Smash Brothers? That would be...
Oh, God, stop it.
See, that
I wouldn't be able to handle it.
We need to play Super Smash Brothers sometime, Mitch.
Come on over.
Last of Us is cool. It's just, my trouble with it is that everybody kind of flipped over it, and it's like if you read or play or watch zombie fiction at all, it's basically a very, very, well-worn zombie story. And so it was really just not that mind-blowing to me. And also it's way too long. It's a third too long as a game. So that's how I feel about it. You murder a few too many people in that game. That's all.
Really quick, so it wasn't really long for me because I was done
You gotta remember, James, that most people don't have your innate inborn ability to finish video games at lightning speed. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think on that note, we're going to wrap this week's episode. We want to thank everybody for listening. I want to encourage you all to head over to our sister site, The Escapist, and check out Mitch and James's videos that are showing up over there in their EXP section now.
We're the most viewed this week.
Yes, you are.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Slowly taking over The Escapist from the inside.
With our one comment on James vs. Games and 2 comments on the Minecraft show.
You guys are killing it. Killing it.
Head over there, GameFronters.
Yes, GameFronters. Go over there and make comments and show them that Mitch and James are awesome. After you check that out, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameFront. You can check us out on Twitter @GameFrontCom, or, you could just send us an email. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, or what you want us to talk about to podcast@GameFront.com. I want to thank everybody for listening. Hope you have a great weekend. And before we go, let's take it around the room again. You got Phil Hornshaw, our senior editor.
Hey. Bye.
Yeah, Mitchell Saltzman.
Bye-bye, I'll miss you forever.
Or at least until next week. James Heaney.
Good morrow. I mean, damn it.
You messed it up again.
Well done, sir. And with that, have a great weekend, folks. We'll see you next time.